So, hi, good afternoon. I'm Erika Kemp, with TXDOT, the Texas Department of Transportation. I'm the director of the Strategic Planning Division. So, one of my responsibilities is to ensure that we as an agency are looking forward as to what's in the future for transportation, but also ensuring that we're implementing that so that it's not just, all talk about what transportation could be, which we're going to talk about some things today that you'll see that the future is really becoming reality right now when we talk about connected vehicles and autonomous freight. And so I'm just going to see which button works here. Is it? Oh, he's got to swap it. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to talk, first I'm going to tell you a little bit. Oh, I thought he was too.
I thought I was too.
All right, so I have to admit, I lost a daughter at a Walmart. You've never seen a Walmart locked down so fast in Southern California when they find out there's a child missing. Yeah. I'm just like, they wouldn't let anybody leave the building. They literally had to walk by me before anyone could leave the building, children or no children. So hold on to your child's hand in Walmart. Okay, so with that lesson, maybe I don't need to give a safety message, but at TXDOT, safety, we're very serious about safety. So I did want to take just a moment and talk about ending the street here in Texas. So if you're not aware, there's been a death on a Texas road every day since November of 2020, right? So that's almost 23 years. 2000, thank you. Whew, got too many twos in there. So in November of 2000, so 23 years almost that we've had a death on any Texas road, right? So I'm not just talking the state system, which is what people think that TXDOT is responsible for. So we take it seriously across the state. So just consider that when you're leaving here today. Many of you will be driving. It is probably the most dangerous thing that you'll be doing during the day. So please leave your phone down. Don't text message. If you're going to talk, Bluetooth, and be safe and stay focused on the road, right? You, your family, and your friends, and everyone here depends on that. Okay, I'm off my soapbox. And so let's talk about what's happening in the state of Texas. Our population has grown by 470,000 plus people. That's a 1.6% increase, right, between 2021 and 2022, right? So that is huge. That is growing faster than the population here in the United States on a percentage basis. So what does that mean for our roadways? Well, that means that there's a lot more cars on our roadways, right? But it also impacts a lot of other transportation areas that I'm going to talk about and what we'll refer to as the multimodal. So TXDOT and the other transportation agencies within the state are trying to address how do we stop having a death on the road every day while the population is growing and the volume of cars continue to increase. All right, so a little bit about Texas. So our TXDOT, our mission is to connect you with Texas, right? We're focused on safety. We're focused on congestion. We're reducing congestion, not creating it. We are focused on increasing mobility, and it all leads to enhancing the quality of life for Texans, right? And so that's what TXDOT is working towards. We are led by a 5-member volunteer commission. They are looking over the policies that the agency is implementing, ensuring that we're working on behalf of the constituents of Texas. They are appointed by the governor, and we do have a full commission at this time. We've been down to 4 for a period of time, but we do have 5. We have right now over 13,000 employees at the agency because we were allocated some additional headcount in this last legislative session. The majority of those employees are working in the districts. We have 25 districts that you'll see depicted on the graphic here, and they're the ones who really do the work at TXDOT. They're the ones that identify the projects, build the projects, then actually let the projects, and they are the ones that oversee the execution of the projects. and the work on the roads. And many of them actually are out there physically working on the roads at TXDOT. There are also a number of us that are within divisions. As I said, I'm with the Strategic Planning Division that are here in Austin or throughout the state of Texas. Now that we have learned that teleworking does work, all right, as many other people did, so people don't have to physically be sitting here in Austin, and we can really get the most qualified people for positions now. But our goal in the divisions is to support the districts, right, and ensure that they're delivering on our transportation program, which is a $146 billion 10-year program. $146 billion is what we plan to be executing on over the next 10 years to develop projects and then let those projects. That does not include the work that you saw on the road today when you drove in here. And I know you saw some work unless you actually came from just around the corner, right? So lots of work on the Texas roads. We have the largest program in the country. And so there's some things we have to remember. And so when I came into this role, I was working internally within the agency and very internally focused. And I had to understand that not all states are as fortunate as Texas. And so we are able to do a lot more in the state of Texas looking forward in the future and with our transportation program than other states. So when you attend conferences outside the state of Texas, and there are lots of people there from other departments of transportation, you have to remember that and be very respectful about the fact that when you talk about things, you can't talk about spending $146 billion, right? And that's just a very key learning for us. That's why I bring it up to you. Is I stress it here because you're here, you're in Texas. That's what we're investing in our state. But we do have to be respectful that we have to lead for other states and help them identify paths that they can go down, but they may not be the first with that innovation. All right, so let's talk about the roadway system. There are almost 81,000 miles of state roadways, right? So that's state roadways, meaning ones that the TXDOT is responsible for. That does not include your county roads or your local city roads, right? So that's just what we maintain. We do help the counties and the local governments through the project development process, but we do have very clear definitions of who is responsible for which road. Right, that includes more than 574 million vehicle miles that were traveled in the state. So think about that, all the vehicles, right? And we track how many miles we're estimating that they're traveling. Now, this, as I mentioned, only 25% of the roadways are actually on the state system, right? Including your interstates, your state highways, and your farm to market roads, and some of your rural routes. So the other 75% belong to the counties and the local governments. Now, there are 55,000 bridges and bridge structures in the state of Texas, and TXDOT is responsible for the inspection of all 55,000 of those, but we're actually only responsible for maintaining 28,000, so approximately half of those. The other half are, again, maintained by your local and county governments. 36,000 are on the state system. But we do have to inspect all of those. And then we have our rural connectivity, right? 267 rural connectivity projects have been completed since 2015, and there's 148 under construction. Kind of felt like I saw 148 projects on my way in. I come from Spicewood, so it was quite some distance and went through quite a few projects to get here. And so we also invest $14 billion in the rural districts, right? And so if we went back and looked at the map, your rural districts will be on the northeastern side of the state, along with the western side of the state. All right, so but we are more than roads and bridges, though that's what many people think of TXDOT as being. We have aviation. There are 271 general aviation airports. We do not oversee the airports, but we do manage the funding for their projects. So when they have to repave a runway, all of that work has to come through TXDOT, and we oversee how that funding is allocated down to them and spent. We do have a maritime division that works with the 20 maritime ports, and we do spend a lot of time looking at the ports and how to be innovative, because that is, we are the number one nation in the nation for waterborne commerce, right? So freight coming in and out of the U.S. Our public transportation, we have 68 rural and urban transit districts, right? So while, again, we don't run the systems like Cap Metro, we help oversee those programs and their funding. And then we do have a team dedicated to bike and pedestrian paths and safety throughout the state. And lastly, there is rail. I know that is interesting here, right? 10,500 plus miles of rail here in the state. And we, again, oversee and help them with the funding and the management of their project program. All of these multimodal areas became very, very important to Texas, and our understanding on how they impact freight in the state, right? Because if we tried to take all the freight that these other multimodal systems were bringing in and transporting through the state or to the state, that would severely crowd our highways and our freight systems even more. All right, so when you look at 2019 compared to what we expect the freight to have an impact on the state of Texas in 2050, you'll see why we're extremely focused on how do we effectively and efficiently move freight in the state. I know all of you went through COVID with us, and it was really frustrating to go to the grocery store and not have products that we actually needed, right? So everyone takes that into consideration now, is that the day-to-day products that we need to live, when we can't get those to the points where the public needs to get them, is a huge impact. And that's what happened and what we discovered with freight, right? The freight could not get where it needed to be. So you were running around from store to store trying to find toilet paper, right? I know you don't have to admit it, but we were. And we don't ever want to be in that situation again. So we need efficient, reliable freight. And then there's a continuous growth on it, right? As I talked about the population growth coming into Texas, right? Then there's more freight coming into the state, and they're on our highways and they're on our roads. So to deliver this $146 billion program across all these different modals of transportation, it takes a lot of collaboration with a variety of different people. We have to work with the other state agencies. TXDOT is responsible for the engineering. We're responsible for the roadways. DPS is responsible for enforcement, right? And then we have other agencies such as DMV that's responsible for licensing. And so we all have to work together to deliver on the transportation system. We work very closely with FHWA, USDOT. There's a joint project office that is now out there that brings transportation and energy together, and a variety of different agencies from a federal level. And I'm just talking on the transportation side. I'm not talking about the business operational side of it. Then the state departments of transportation. So we do work with other states. We try to learn from them. We share with them what we're learning. There's 254 counties in the state, and there's over 1,200 local municipalities that we have to coordinate with for their transportation projects. There are the MPOs and the RMAs and other acronyms that we could use for regional planning organizations. There are the state and federal legislative offices who have to be kept informed, who also provide their feedback to us as well. And as you can see, the list just goes on and on and on of different organizations that we have to collaborate with. Most importantly, we have to collaborate with the public, and we have a lot of public involvement, and we do take their feedback. There's a lot of feedback and a lot of feedback processes because we're a public agency. All right, so now kind of shifting over to talk a little bit about smart cities, since that was the theme of the day today. The cities here in Texas, there were about 10 of them that when the initial Smart Cities Challenge came out, each one of them put a team together and collaborated. Austin was the one that submitted the actual Smart Cities application. However, the cities really liked the idea of this challenge, and so we have kept them on in a couple of different consortiums. One of them is our Texas Technology Task Force, and so we have a variety of different people, whether it's industry, it's transportation, it's research. They come together and talk strategically about what technologies are being seen that are impacting transportation in the state of Texas. So we just had our recent Texas Technology Task Force. We talked about 5G and we talked about cybersecurity and privacy because those are important things impacting transportation. We also have the Texas Innovation Alliance, and the Texas Innovation Alliance is made up of the local governments in the counties across the state. They come together, they share their innovations, and we in turn submit that to FHWA for the Statewide Transportation Innovation Council, which is an FHWA-funded program. So we're tying all of these together in all of these different agencies. The TIA, or the Texas Innovation Alliance, recently held an Innovation Invitational. We had 10 different localities working together, and they put together an innovation project related to intelligent transportation systems and presented them to us at the first invitational. There were 8 of the teams that were able to follow through to our follow-up and our final round. And they had their presentations just a couple of weeks ago, and we awarded some grant writing services to the Dallas-Fort Worth team who are working on a mobility solution for an economically challenged area within Fort Worth. So they picked an area that doesn't get much attention from a transportation perspective. And then the second team winner was actually San Marcos, and I'm actually really, really excited about what the city of San Marcos is doing, because they're building a transportation center and bringing in a transportation management application that ties together all the different forms of transportation in the city of San Marcos. And it allows, at a state level, a county level, a local level, to see that information and for everyone to respond as quickly as possible. And so one of the things that we've been looking at from a TXDOT perspective is how to do that and provide that at a state level, because not all municipalities will have the funding like San Marcos to create such a tool. So I have a person on my team who's now investigating a statewide transportation management center and system that allows anyone who needs access to that information to have that information and manage what it is that they're doing. And there's tons of use cases. I could probably talk up here for like 3 hours about the exciting use cases that we could do from a safety standpoint on those. But I wanted to share that with you and tie this into the smart cities. So smart cities are important, not just for a smart city being built, but for the innovation that it creates long term. All right, so back to smart mobility. So what is smart mobility? Smart mobility is really talking about transportation emerging technology to address our most pressing challenges. So one of those is going to be the intelligent transportation systems. And as Andre said, we need those. We need that infrastructure in order to support what else is happening within transportation. The OEMs have said for years, the original equipment manufacturers, right? So I won't list companies. You all know who I'm talking about, the vehicle manufacturers. They have said that they don't need anything from the DOTs in order for their autonomous vehicles to work. That's okay. They now come to us and tell us what they need. And we're working with them because that's good. That's what we're all here to do. They have a lot of connected vehicles, which generates a lot of data. And on the last panel, I was hearing a lot of the same challenges with data that we're facing from a transportation perspective. But we have to work through those challenges because connected vehicles and connected vehicle data is going to be taking us into the future, and that's one of our big keys for improving safety. And I've got a use case here towards the end if I don't run out of time. And then automated vehicles. How many of you have ridden in an automated vehicle? Okay, a few hands have gone up. Cruise is here downtown. And so I've got a slide that'll show where some of the other places are where we have the autonomous vehicles in the state of Texas. But if you have an opportunity, you have to go after 8 o'clock at night. They're only running from 8 o'clock at night until 5 o'clock in the morning. yet they are impacting some of transportation, and we're learning quite a bit about what it means to have an autonomous passenger vehicle company in Austin. And so then you have the difference between automated vehicles and autonomous vehicles. So automated vehicles have forms of automated features in them versus the autonomous vehicle, which is a driverless vehicle, is the easiest way to think about that. We do at TXDOT have an entire team on my staff that is responsible for cooperative and automated transportation. We call it the CAT program. And no, we did not let them put a cat in the logo, right? But it is our cooperative and automated transportation program. We are really focused on safe, reliable, and efficient movement of people and goods in a multimodal transportation network. We focus on safety, reliability, mobility, agility, meaning to be responsive. And I always laugh because I always say I'm probably the most risk-tolerant person at TXDOT. And so I do think we can move very quickly, and we should move very quickly. We are not a public agency that should be slow. So agility is very important to us. And then vitality, ensuring that we're building a robust transportation system that achieves the goals that it needs to. We do have 5 focus areas, 35 strategies, and 56 initiatives within this CAT program. It's going to keep my team busy for a number of years as we work to deploy this. Part of it is around innovative corridors in Texas. So I did want to share with you some of the places where you might start seeing some innovation. If you have been up in the Fort Worth area, there's the Alliance Private Inland Port, and they are privately investing in automation from a warehouse district to an airport. There is Tex Press, which is actually, on here we call them a concession company. It's a toll road, right? That's the easy way to know what it is. And there are some up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. The company that is managing those has actually built an innovative corridor on Route 66 in Virginia. And so we're looking for how to bring that expertise here on that toll road. NCT-COG, which is the Metropolitan Planning Organization for Dallas-Fort Worth, very, very innovative group, and I love to watch them as they move forward. They are collaborating with Waze and a 911 integration in order to improve safety, along with the sharing of the AV trucking data, and they have a number of contracts for AI-type applications that they can use up there. We locally have State Highway 130, which is a toll road. We have 2 projects, of which one, the contract was executed yesterday or today, so I'm very excited about that. So I can now tell you about it because it's executed. If you've heard of a company called Cavnu, they're a Google startup, and they create poles, very much like the light poles that Andres was showing, that will go in the right-of-way along the SH-130, and we're able to capture data off them. And we're going to be collaborating with them on then the business case behind the data as they're using the video cameras on top of the poles. The poles can be used for all sorts of other sensors or other, whether it's 5G cells, LiDAR, radar, any of those types of things that can be added to them. That's one of the projects. The other project is a very similar project by a nonprofit organization, which that project is not finalized yet, so I'm not going to go into too much detail about it. But it's very similar with its own little spin about who owns the poles and how the data and everything is managed. MoCav is this greenfield railroad space. It's not very wide, really can only handle, in probably its widest area, 4 lanes, but mostly it's just a 2-lane road if we were going to put a road down it. So it's this greenfield space from Pflugerville, almost reaching downtown, that we wouldn't know existed except for this railroad track was there. We are looking for what we can do with that space to create an innovative transportation to get from a very fast-growing area outside of Austin and Pflugerville for people that need to get downtown and back up into Pflugerville. And then I-45 is my team's pet project. We are looking at I-45 and how we can turn that into an innovative corridor to support freight and work zone safety. And you'll see why in just a minute when I show you where the autonomous freight trucks are. Yes, there are autonomous freight trucks in the state of Texas. Good news is the driver is still in them, but we'll talk about that in just a minute. Okay, so it's really important if you have never looked up the levels of autonomy from vehicles, it might be something that you're interested in. The cars that we drove back in like the 1970s did not have automation, so they would be level 1, no automation. Over time, we have progressed to where we have some conditioned automation in our vehicles. Many of the more current vehicles have partial automation. And then we have companies like Cruise that are in high automation and full automation. We have freight companies that are in high automation and that still have drivers in the seat with their hands about an inch off the steering wheel so that they can respond if needed. And then we have these new personal delivery devices. How many of you have seen the bicyclist with the little robot in front of it going downtown in Austin, right? They're delivering lunch, they're delivering prescriptions, and they are popping up throughout the state testing these small devices. They do have to have a personal assistant monitoring them right now, so that's why you see the person on the bicycle with them. Okay, so I'll leave this up here for just a minute, so that you can get an idea of where people are within the state of Texas from an autonomous vehicle standpoint, while I talk a little bit about the freight, autonomous freight. If you haven't been following the journey of autonomous freight, here in Texas, we don't have a lot of regulation around autonomous freight. And there was an intention behind that because we want the companies to come to Texas and we want them to test. It's economic development, and it's going to help us with freight challenges that we had, as I explained, through COVID and things that we learned during that time about how we have to be more efficient. One of our other states, California, has not been as receptive to them. And while there was not a lot of regulation around them, recently the Teamsters were able to get a lot of energy behind a bill that they were lobbying for that would require a driver to be in the vehicle, and that they would never be allowed to take the driver out of the vehicle in the freight vehicles. And it made it all the way through the legislature, and they approved it, and the governor vetoed it this past weekend, which is a good thing for the freight industry, that they will be able to test with that. I'm not going to ask you all what your opinions are or not, but for Texas, we do expect that we'll see some legislation like that pop up in our next legislative session as well. However, our current state of freight is that we have companies like Aurora and Kodiak who are highly focused on safety. We meet with them on a regular basis and are very knowledgeable about everything that they are doing. I've ridden in one of the freight trucks. It's actually really cool. They stay in the right lane. They go 55 miles an hour. If the traffic's going by them at 75 miles an hour, they're still going 55 miles an hour because that's safe. They don't leave the right lane unless they absolutely have to leave the right lane. If you watch their screens in the cab of the truck, they can easily see people and bicyclists and dogs and all those things that are on the road. And yes, when you get up into that Dallas-Fort Worth area, you'd be amazed what you see crossing the highway. And so we were able to see those things. They respond, they slow down. If a car looks like it's coming over across the lines, the truck gently moves over. We as humans, we really move over, right? So actually they're a lot safer in their responses. So they're doing a really great job. They do expect that they will be able to have a driverless truck here in early 2024. And they will be on our highways. Now, the key to knowing when you see a Kodiak truck or you see an Aurora truck that right now it's an autonomous vehicle is there are two people in the cab. You have the driver who is sitting with his hands around the wheels, paying attention just like we all should be so that he can be responsive when needed to be. And then there is a safety coordinator in the truck monitoring the video and making sure that everything is going well. They have the ability in the truck to flip it back to manual or human driven, and they have that ability to do that from their central locations as well. So my goal is to make you feel comfortable knowing that you are driving on highways with autonomous trucks, right? And they're doing it. And I'm going to tell you, I got this job, and I had to drive to Dallas like 3 weeks later, and my team had told me all about this, and I hadn't met anybody from the autonomous companies. And of course, there was I hate to say it, an electric car on fire on I-35 just north of Waco. And I watched all the crazy people drive off the right side of the highway, right, through the right-of-way down to the frontage road, and was really scared about some of the 18-wheelers that were going down there, and the huge trucks with the huge trailers behind them, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how crazy some people are, but everybody was safe, at least that was good. But as I'm pulling up closer and closer to the accident, because I was up at the very front, I looked over, and there was an autonomous truck next to me. And I knew it was an autonomous truck, and it was very interesting. It performed extremely well in this situation where we all had to get over to the right lane. The right lane was the only one open. It was in the right lane, right? It's an 18-wheeler. It's blocking a whole lot of traffic. And it stopped, and it let the traffic clear out before it pulled through. And I watched the whole thing, and so I was actually really, really impressed. Now, with that said, if anything does happen, just know that this is what I'm telling you is right now everything is very focused on safety, and I don't want to jinx them. So I'm going to knock on wood. I'll let you all ask me any questions you want to about the autonomous vehicles when we're through. I do want to talk just a little bit about data, right? Because data is one of the next frontiers. My team is working on an artificial intelligence strategy for the department because we do believe that artificial intelligence is going to be very, very helpful to making the agency much more efficient and effective in order to deliver the transportation program that we have. So we have signed statewide contracts, meaning that not just TXDOT has access to this data, but we've obtained access for the counties and the local municipalities and their consultants, so that if anyone needs data from any of these three companies, they can get it without any extra cost. And that goes back to the fact that our goal is not just about safety on the state system that we're responsible for, it's about safety across the entire state of Texas. INRIX provides just a variety of data, and I'm going to show you a use case on the next slide as to what they can do. Wejo is an actual real-time company that gets us real-time data from more than one of the manufacturers, so that we have access to that data and that we can respond to it. And then Replica actually has a really cool data platform. They have their scenarios, and they provide the data in usable formats versus in a format that we can use it for newly defined use cases. So their use cases are predefined. Everything here is autonomous. We don't know who drivers are. We don't even know what types of vehicles they're in other than by large categories. They will not aggregate the data for us. So a trip is one point to the next point. They will not show us that a car went from point A to point B to point C to point D to point E. We see it as point A to point B, point A to point B, point A to point B. And they will not give us the full aggregate of that because they are protecting the drivers, the road users. So I share that with you as we're getting a lot of data. There would be some nice to haves. That would be one of them, is that we could see what are called tours, a number of trips that are all at the same time by a driver, but it's not something they're sharing. So what are the cool things that we can do with this data? We took one of our districts and we looked at their roads that are over 60 miles an hour, right? Because we have roads that are 75 and 80 miles an hour, 2-lane roads that are 75 and 80 miles an hour with pretty big curves on them. So we said, okay, let's go look at those roads. Let's look at our crashes, our fatal and our serious injury crashes, and let's identify where those are happening on a more consistent basis. And this is really cool because this is the first step in the process. Now we know where to go and look. The question is, what do you do with it, right? We know where the issue is. We can now put it into another tool that then says, okay, what are you solving for? I want to reduce crashes in this space, and it will give us mitigation strategies. And it will say you could do these 6 things. You can take those 6 things and say, I want to do 2 of the 6, load that mitigation strategy into a digital twin, and then in the digital twin, have it tell you what that actually means and how the road would change, or give you options that say, here are the 3 different ways that you could change the road to mitigate that problem. All right, it gets better. So now I pick which mitigation strategy I'm interested in the digital twin, and I say, this is what I want to build. You take another AI tool that says, okay, you want to build this? Here are the same types of products that you've used in the past to build that type of a roadway in your district, right? Because the types of things that we use in Houston are different than the types of things that we use in Amarillo. We flood in Houston. We get snowstorms and ice in Amarillo. It's different asphalt, right? Different components of the roadways. Who knew there's more than 35 types of asphalt? Don't ask me what they are. I know you do. But that was amazing to me. I was like, really? Asphalt's not just asphalt when I came to TXDOT? Okay, but back to the really cool stuff, the AI. Now I know what I want to build. I know what are the bid items that I need to build it. Now I can say, okay, based off previous experience, again, in my district, here are the, what we would call terms and conditions. At TXDOT, we call them provisions and specifications that I need. Here are the general notes, which is where the engineer gets to change whatever he wants to in the provisions and specifications and puts it in the general notes that you've used in the past. Let me put that together for you. Oh, and based off those bid items, here are 3 different bid estimates for you to pick from. And when the engineer goes in and instead of having to build every one of those different documents individually, now has options to choose from, creates the package that then goes out to the contractors for them to bid on. That's how we become more effective and efficient using AI internally and not being afraid of what it can do for us. Because it's real important. We keep the human in the decision-making parts, but you let the AI build the options for us. So to me, that's what's really exciting. This is really, really the first step here with our digital roadway data use case. Analyze the data, and then all the other exciting pieces will come. Do I have time for questions?
Yeah. She can have my time. She's a lot more interesting.
Was it a question?
Yes, I actually do have a question. So, Elon has more transportation companies than just Tesla. So, here in Austin, he also has a boring company, and he has Hyperloop. Does TXDOT anticipate any type of unsolicited proposal, or do you have any idea what he's thinking with those 2 companies as far as transportation?
I have not been able to get a meeting with Elon. So I don't know what he's thinking, but we have been bantering back and forth, some of us at the agency, about sort of when you think about a moonshot, right? Like, what will it take to jump us ahead in the next 10 years, 15 years? What do we think is really out there that we think is unachievable, but we really should achieve it, right? A moonshot. That's something that we put on that list. And actually, yesterday in a meeting, we were talking about what does that mean with the boring company? Where could we put a Hyperloop? There is a company that thinks we could bore underneath the highways, big tunnels, and we could run the 18-wheelers, not actual 18-wheelers themselves, but the trailers. We could just ship the trailers through the tunnel from, the Port of Houston up to Dallas, right? And get them off the roads. So my job is to say, okay, that sounds really cool. How would we do it? Does that make sense? What would it take? Are there people interested in doing it? My job is not to go, oh, that's crazy, right? That's why I say I don't know if it was a good thing for TXDOT when they put me in this role or not, because they know how risk tolerant I am and that I like to shake things up and look at those things.
Dude, he's already got a tunnel. You've been out to the Boring Company and SpaceX, they're on different sides of the road,
Right.
and he's done a tunnel underneath your road to get back and forth between the two.
Right, and there's, might have been the airport that you were talking about, or the city that's being built, if it's the one that's east of Austin, the developer for that city is also talking about how to use the Boring Company and connect his airport with this city.
Do you know if he had to get a permit for that tunnel?
I'm not going down that, Andres. That's a loaded question. You know that's a loaded question. I know, but I'm going to the next, I'm going someplace else, Andres.
Okay.
Erika, first of all, congratulations. First time I'm listening to the DOT executive speak. Blew my mind.
She's a former AT&T executive.
Not surprised. So here is a question for the leader of strategy for Texas DOT. Given the various challenges you laid out here, do you guys actually have an investment arm saying these are the companies that we think are going to invest in because their solutions might actually help solve our problems?
So we don't necessarily invest in companies. As a public agency, right, we can procure services from someone and we can go out for contracting. I'll go back to the nonprofit organization that I was talking about earlier on SH 130. And that is, there is an opportunity, like Andres was talking about with the lights, within an easements or within the right of way for people to permit. And so I have asked this nonprofit organization, they're very excited about what they're doing, is give us an unsolicited proposal and then let me go figure out what all the roadblocks are for how you can do what you want to do in our right of way. But their thought process is very similar to what Andres was sharing with you earlier about what we could be doing with streetlights. So again, my role is to listen and so first of all, if you come talk to the executive director of TXDOT, he's going to tell you that sounds really cool. You should go talk to Erika, right? And so let me tell you how that translates. Mark said that we can do this. And I have to go, yes, I understand Mark said we can do this. But Mark then expects me to look at how can we really do that and what's the feasibility of it, what's the cost, is it something TXDOT should be involved in? And so that's my role, is not to say no. It's to say, let's go look and see what we can do. And if it's the right thing, then yes, we're going to find a way to do it. The contract I told you that we just signed this week with Cavnew was a year in the working to get that done because there were some innovative procurement things around it.